Hello and welcome back to Doki Doki Dollmaker. I guess we're now starting our everyday life with our new dolls turned humans, so let's get back into it. Lyle groaned loudly into his pillow before turning off his alarm clock. He rolled over onto his back with a heavy sigh and sleepily ran his fingers through his hair. He hadn't gotten much sleep, choosing instead to stay up late chatting with the dolls. His forearm was still sore from pinching it throughout the evening. It was his little reminder to himself that he was wide awake, and the whole dolls turning human thing wasn't just some dream or stress-induced hallucination. He could still hardly believe it was real. A loud growl echoed through the room. Lyle placed his hand on his stomach and patted it gently. That's weird. I don't feel hungry. Yeah, well, that happens sometimes. I guess it couldn't hurt to eat something, though. Suddenly, something grabbed Lyle's wrist and yanked him to the edge of the bed. Please, help us. Cavill's grip on Lyle's wrist loosened, and he collapsed to the floor. Lyle's eyes widened in surprise as he saw all 5 dolls sprawled out in their human forms on the bedroom floor. They looked incredibly weak and sickly. He jumped out of bed to check on them. What happened? What's wrong? Can't move. The dolls winced in pain and rolled all over the floor, cradling their stomachs. Decifer and Torrance started a rather pathetic slap fight with each other in frustration. There was another loud grumble. Lyle rubbed a hand over his face with a sigh. It wasn't his stomach that was growling, it was theirs. Don't scare me like that. You're just hungry. Actually, I don't remember you guys eating anything yesterday. No wonder you're all feeling this way. He helped the smallest doll, Rook, to his feet and started to head downstairs toward the kitchen, motioning for the others to follow. You'll be feeling better in no time. Follow me. Lyle knew Cole had started work early that day, so he was free to make the dolls some breakfast. Let's see. Lyle had to think of something quick. He still needed to get ready for school and didn't have time to make eggs, bacon and French toast for 6 people. He rummaged through the fridge and pantry, pulling out all kinds of easy breakfast foods like cereal, fruit, frozen waffles and bread. Thank goodness Cole went grocery shopping. The 5 dolls sat quietly at the kitchen table while Lyle prepared breakfast. Once everything was ready, the items were arranged in front of them along with plates, cutlery and glasses for drinks. There we go. Dig in. The dolls stared and poked at the food. It didn't look like they knew what to do with it. How could the dolls know how to speak and walk around, but not know how to eat? Thank you for being self-aware about this. Like, the rules are a bit unclear, but it's fine. It's magic. Like this. Lyle started eating, showing the dolls how they should hold their utensils. He also showed them how to properly eat the food that didn't require any. The dolls followed his example, and the food soon revived them. Their enthusiasm made Lyle chuckle. Wow, this is incredible. I can feel my strength coming back. Yep, food is energy for your human bodies. Make sure you eat a lot of it, but not too much. I like these little things, sweet and juicy. Decipher licked his lips before eating another grape. If you like grapes, you'll probably enjoy other fruits too. There's a bunch of different kinds. Oh, let me try. Rook grabbed a banana from the table and went to take a bite from it with the peel on. Wait a sec, you've got to peel that one. Lyle took the banana from Rook's hands and peeled it for him. There, now try. Lyle smiled sweetly as he handed it back to the small doll. Rook took a large bite of the banana and froze. His eyes started to water and he spat it out immediately, crying loudly while kicking his feet under the table. Yeah, I hate it. You're so loud. Torrent's eye twitched at the commotion. Try this, Rook. Ellery gave Rook a large glass of orange juice. Rook downed it in an instant and let out a satisfied sigh when the glass was empty, completely forgetting about the banana and acting as though nothing had happened. Ooh, yummy! Torrent sighed as he snatched a plain waffle from the toaster and began munching on it. Oh, Torrent, you're supposed to put syrup on the waffle and use a fork and knife to eat it. Says who? Torrent glared at Lyle, who waved his hands nervously in front of his chest. No one. You're doing just fine. How are you making out, Cavell? Remember. Cavell's mouth was stuffed with donuts. A ring was hanging from his lips as he smiled, his cheeks plump and rosy. You look like a hamster. Here, this will help. Lyle passed Cavell a large glass of milk. As the doll began to drink, Lyle explained where the milk had come from by pointing at a cow pictured on the carton. Upon hearing this news, Cavell promptly spat out the milk, spraying it all over Torrent's face across the table in front of him. It does sound bizarre when you think of it. Decipher burst out laughing and slapped his hand repeatedly on the table, unable to contain himself. Torrent looked ready to pick a fight, but was interrupted by Lyle, who suddenly shot to his feet. Shoot, is that the time? I've got to get ready for school. Lyle scrambled up the staircase to brush his teeth and change into his school uniform. He hoped the dolls wouldn't do too much damage while he was gone. Can't believe I lost track of time like that. Tilly will be here any min... Just my luck. That's her at the front door now. How would he explain the dolls to her? With the lack of real-world experience, it was impossible for him to introduce them as regular people. They didn't even know how to eat until just a few minutes ago. No, I have to keep them a secret. Hello? Lyle fumbled down the stairs with his hair half brushed, his tie crooked, and his shirt only partially tucked in. I'll get it. Cavell grinned cheerfully as he approached the door. What are you thinking? Lyle pulled Cavell out of the way just in time, sending him spiraling out of sight and back into the kitchen with the other dolls. Lyle opened the door to find Tilly with an annoyed look on her face. She tapped her foot impatiently. "What took you so long?" You look like a mess. Rough morning?" She stepped forward, ready to enter the house like she did the day before, but Lyle instinctively blocked her. What's the matter? You can't come in today." "Why not?" "We're, doing some repairs." Tilly's eyes narrowed. "What kind of repairs?" The roof collapsed." He was a terrible liar. "What? Your roof is perfectly fine." "What are you hiding in there?" Nothing. You don't need to come by the house anymore, okay? If I keep walking to class with you, I'll never be on time." Eh? Lyle slammed the door shut and locked Tilly outside. He felt bad, but there wasn't much else he could do. He called out to the dolls in the kitchen as he grabbed his school bag. "I've got to go to school. Stay hidden and don't open this door." Lyle ran out the back door, trying to beat Tilly to the classroom. Wow, I mean, he could have still walked to the school with Tilly as long as he didn't let her in. Well, he panicked, I get it. Lyle managed to avoid Tilly all day at school. It was difficult at times, especially during class when she would pester him for answers. Luckily, she was scolded by the teacher whenever she raised her voice, which saved Lyle on multiple occasions. During their lunch break, Lyle found sanctuary in the boys' restroom. It wouldn't be the first time he ate lunch in a stall, not that he was particularly proud of that fact. Lyle could see Tilly's frustration escalating throughout the day, and by the time the final bell rang, she was screaming out the classroom window at him as he ran home ahead of her. "Keeping secrets from me, huh? I'll find out eventually." Lyle's feet finally stopped at the house. The only plus side of Tilly being angry with him was that it seemed to keep his bullies at bay. Lyle couldn't decide which situation was worse. Being on Tilly's bad side left him just as winded as a blow to the stomach. Yeah, I don't know if you can really compare that, but okay. He went inside and headed straight for the kitchen to get a drink. He wiped the sweat from his brow with the back of his hand, still trying to catch his breath. Let me guess, the dolls didn't clean up after themselves, so there's still a huge breakfast spread in the kitchen for his brother to find. "You're home early." Cole looked up from his word puzzle. He was sitting at the kitchen table with a coffee mug in his hand. The news was playing quietly on the television in the living room nearby. "Did you run here?" Lyle nodded as he took a cold bottle of water from the fridge and began guzzling it. He exhaled loudly after his swig and sank down into the chair across from his brother, pressing his face against the cool table with a heavy sigh. "Eat this. You'll feel better." Cole tossed Lyle a caramel candy. He always seemed to have one or two on him. Lyle unwrapped it without lifting his head from the table and lazily popped it into his mouth. "How was work?" Lyle mumbled the words through a caramel-stuffed cheek. A 6-year-old with a clavicle fracture was brought in today. The kid jumped off his swing set, thinking he could fly. He took a sip of coffee and went back to his word puzzle with an impassive look on his face. Cole was a pediatrician at the hospital in town. He'd been offered a position there shortly after the death of their parents, perhaps out of pity. Would you like a position such as this, like any kind of doctor, to really use pity? Not to say Cole was unqualified. He was young for a doctor, but remarkably skilled. It just seemed strange to Lyle that the position was suddenly available when they needed it most. I don't know, sometimes they're just lucky coincidences. He could only assume it was offered to Cole when the Human Resources Department heard of their recent loss. Whatever the circumstances, Cole had gladly accepted, putting his pride aside so he could support them both. He worked long hours and was on call most of the time, which was why Lyle was usually alone. Alone? No, Lyle wasn't alone anymore. He excitedly stood up from the table and headed for the stairs. I just remembered something. See ya. Cole shook his head with a smirk and continued working on his puzzle. Okay, so no mess that he came home to? Lyle ran upstairs and opened his bedroom door wide, expecting to see 5 friendly faces there waiting for him. The room was empty. Had it all been a dream? He pinched his forearm again, just to be sure. Lyle stepped into the quiet room and closed the door behind him. As soon as the door's latch clicked shut, he heard several popping sounds and the dolls appeared before him. Phew, it's Lyle. Obviously. We thought you might have been Cole and played it safe by staying in our doll forms. Yes, we are taking your #1 rule very seriously. We're so glad it was you, though. Lyle was relieved to see their faces. He let out a sigh and wondered if he'd ever get used to the doll suddenly disappearing and reappearing like that. Are you okay, Lyle? Rook looked up at him with concern, fidgeting with the sleeves. You were in quite a panic this morning. And still seem to be. What's the matter? I'm fine, really. It's just... I've been trying to avoid Tilly all day and it's exhausting. Lyle tossed his school bag on the bed and fell backward onto the mattress with a groan. He stared up at the ceiling, his arms and legs extended outward. I don't know what to do. She knows something's up and it's only a matter of time before she sees you guys. You mean that girl who said I was ugly? Lyle sat up in surprise. Wait, you heard that? We hear everything in doll form. Can you see and feel things too? Yes, but only a little. An image flashed through Lyle's mind. It was the first day of school, and he pressed his lips to each doll's tiny, stitched head. His cheeks flushed a deep red in embarrassment. He hoped the dolls didn't remember the moment as vividly as he did. It was innocent enough, though. How was he supposed to have known they were alive? He thought it might be better to keep the memory to himself. After all, the dolls didn't even know what a simple handshake was. There was no sense in confusing them with something as complicated as a kiss. You wouldn't know how to explain it properly anyway. So, your sense of hearing is stronger than your other senses while in doll form? That's strange. Actually, having any senses while in doll form is strange. This whole thing is pretty surreal, isn't it? I guess I have a lot to learn about you guys. Lyle scratched the back of his head. His gaze fell to the ground as he became lost in thought. The very existence of the dolls overwhelmed him. He rubbed his forearm, wondering how many times he had pinched it since they'd first appeared. Yeah, it's really tricky when neither of them really know how it worked, because it's not a situation like you have in some other stories like this, where it's like a curse or whatever. If someone with magical knowledge is involved in some way, like, maybe a witch enchanted the dolls and then she would be able to offer some input about what's happening. But this way they have to just figure it out all on their own. Yeah, that's gonna be tricky. The dolls looked at each other with uncertainty. I think the easiest way to learn is to listen. Whenever you're ready, I'd be happy to lend an ear. We can certainly study on our own as well, so don't feel pressured to teach us everything. Just take it one day at a time. Okay, kiddo? Desifer cheerfully rubbed the top of Lyle's head. The gesture helped Lyle's smile return, which seemed to encourage the dolls. Rook eagerly stumbled over to a box of Lyle's manga and pulled a few volumes out. Lyle, what are these? I like the pictures. Don't bother him for stuff like that. Lyle laughed himself. To think the little plush dolls he made contained such big personalities. Each doll was unique, and they were all trying their best to adapt to the new forms. It must be scary for them too, even if they don't show it. Lyle decided that, for now, he wouldn't ask questions that didn't have answers. He would simply live in the moment with his new friends. Fair enough. Lyle was convinced that he had the strangest daily routine in history. He would wake up, avoid Tilly at school, then return home to teach 5 dolls whatever he could about the world. So if the dolls can hear, at least in their doll form, wouldn't it then make sense maybe to take just one of them at a time to school with him? Or, just wondering if maybe they can then learn a bit more about the world, by at least listening to the lessons, even though, of course, if he's in high school, it might even be a bit too advanced. And also, how do their bodies work? Like, do they only get hungry when they stay in human form, or if they remain in doll form for most of the day, they wouldn't get hungry? A lot of things to consider. Lyle was hesitant to introduce the dolls to the internet or television when they knew so little. They'd probably believe everything they saw. He thought it was best to stick with verbal descriptions and maybe doodle on a notepad if they were particularly puzzled, but his teaching materials were limited and their questions were getting more complex as the days went on. Lyle decided to take the dolls to the library. He remembered passing the building on one of his many detours and thought it would make a decent hiding place in the future. It would be risky taking them to such a crowded place, but definitely worth it. The library was an excellent source of information, and it gave him the opportunity to explore the town a little bit too. He might even find some more escape routes he could use to avoid a bit Tilly. At the very least, it would get them away from Cole, who seemed to be staying home for the day. Lyle wanted to change out of his school uniform before heading out. Normally, he'd collect his clothes and change in the bathroom, but he was in a bit of a rush today. The sooner they got to the library, the more time they could spend there. He glanced at the plush doll sitting on his desk, paying close attention to their button eyes. Eloise said they can sometimes see things in their plush forms. Should I just get changed here? No way, or why not? So, me personally, I would probably change somewhere else just because I'm aware someone is in the room. Like, no matter what form they're in. This really depends on personality, right? Like, even if you considered, okay, they're all dolls, they're all boys, right? Wouldn't... Oh, it's so funny that they're making this a choice. Okay, just me personally in that situation, I just feel a bit awkward, so I would go change in the bathroom, especially if he said like that's what he usually does. And I mean, just because of time constraint, that doesn't make sense. Like, how much longer does it take just to walk to the bathroom? That's not even like a minute that you lose there. I'm just yeah, no way. No way. Convenience wasn't worth the risk. I wouldn't call it a risk necessarily, but you know. What if one of them caught a glimpse of him in his boxers? Embarrassing. He blushed at the thought. No one had ever seen him in his underwear before, except maybe Cole when they were little. People had seen him in swim trunks though. Isn't that basically the same thing? Question. Do you not have like PE at school? Locker rooms? Like nobody seeing you change? That's a bit extreme, maybe. No, completely different. He grabbed his bundle of clothes and escaped down the hall to change in the bathroom, hidden from the button eyes of his dolls. When he was finished changing, Lyle placed each doll gently into his backpack and went downstairs. Cole was asleep on the couch, his arm hanging off its edge and his glasses on the floor beside his fingers. Lyle smiled softly as he approached. You're going to break these one day, I swear. Lyle huffed under his breath as he picked up the expensive-looking frames and set them down on the coffee table. Cole looked pretty worn out, and Lyle didn't want to wake him. Oh, leave a note. Cole will be worried when he wakes up. Walk out the door. He'll be back before he knows it. Yeah, no, leave a note. That's just the considerate thing to do. Not wanting to worry his hard-working brother, Lyle quickly wrote a note and tucked it beneath the glasses on the table, where he'd be sure to find it. Going out. Don't worry. Be back soon. With that, Lyle was out the door and on his way to the library with the dolls. Lyle told the dolls to stay in their plush forms until it was safe to transform. While he walked to the library, he looked around for a secluded place where they could appear without a random passerby spotting them. A dark alleyway between two buildings seemed like a good choice, but after more thought, he decided that it might look bad if he walked out of such a grim place with 5 oddly dressed guys. He didn't want anyone to get the wrong idea. Lyle concluded that the best place for them to transform would be in the library itself, in some unpopular, abandoned section that few people browsed. Really? I don't know. I'd rather do it in the alleyway, I think. Guess it depends if there's someone at the entrance, seeing who walks in, because if I saw someone walking around there, especially if, as he said, they're pretty eye-catching, wouldn't you wonder where they got in from? Huh. Priorities. Once he made it to the library, Lyle searched for an empty area on the second floor. He found a suitable location and opened his bag to remove the dolls. He grinned as he took them out one by one and placed them on the floor. Their little button eyes gazed up at him. They seemed lifeless, but Lyle knew they were shining with a longing for knowledge that he couldn't even begin to understand. He hoped they would find what they were looking for here. "It's safe now. You can come out." The familiar popping sounds were heard, and the 5 dolls suddenly stood before him in their human-like forms. "Yay, yay! Library!" That's library. Shh! Lyle covered Rook's mouth in panic and peered through the shelves to make sure the noise hadn't attracted any attention. "We've got to be quiet or they'll kick us out. Follow me." Lyle brought the dolls to a private reading area nearby, complete with large floor cushions and beanbag chairs. Everyone sat down and looked up at Lyle expectantly. He wasn't sure where to start. It's not like he had prepared a lesson plan or anything. "I've got it. Wait right here." Lyle wandered about in his own on search of educational books for the dolls to examine. Not wanting to overwhelm them, he grabbed a few meant for kids on various subjects such as geography, technology, and most importantly, human anatomy, which could help the dolls learn about their new forms. Yeah, that's what I thought. Books for kids make the most sense to start off with. He reluctantly snatched a potty training book off one of the shelves. If their human forms were similar to human bodies, they'd eventually have to, well, go. That is, if they hadn't already. Do dolls even need to use the restroom? He decided to bring the book just in case. As Lyle began to head back to where he'd left the dolls, he stopped, feeling a dark presence looming over him. "Lyle?" The stack of books shook wildly in Lyle's hands as he peered over his shoulder. "You jerk!" Ugh. The books tumbled to the floor as Lyle scrambled away from the person he'd been desperately trying to avoid. Tilly jabbed Lyle's chest repeatedly with her index finger. "How dare you? Why are you sneaking around here, huh? What are you hiding this time?" She froze suddenly and glanced down at the books scattered about the library floor. Why are you checking out kiddie books? Is your brother expecting a baby or something?" Before Lyle could respond, he heard an irritated voice down the hall, probably a librarian, coming to investigate at the shouting. Lyle hurriedly picked up the books, shoving a few into Tilly's arms, and scurried off behind a nearby bookshelf, motioning for her to follow. "Can you just tell me what the heck is going on?" voice was an enraged whisper as they hid together behind the shelf. Tilly's eyes burned through Lyle. It was too much. It couldn't hurt to tell her, could it? It might be nice to have someone to talk to. Okay, fine. Lyle inhaled deeply. I know it sounds ridiculous, but those dolls I made came to life, like, really came to life. Not as little dolls walking around though, cause that would be kind of creepy if you ask me, but as bigger versions, human-sized versions. Walking, talking, life-sized human doll hybrids that can change forms at will. I've got to take care of them because they didn't even know what food was until a few days ago. No one else knows, and I feel like I'm going bananas. There was a moment of silence. Lyle panted heavily, trying to catch his breath as he waited for Tilly's response. You're serious? Yes, 100% serious. They're right over... Ugh. Tilly threw the books she was holding up in the air. I've just about had it. If you won't tell me, fine. But you don't have to go making up some outrageous story like that. Ugh. She stumped off before Lyle could even speak. He could have proven his strange story to her if she'd just given him the chance. He couldn't blame Tilly, though. Of course she wouldn't believe him. Lyle could hardly believe it himself. He'd prove it to her somehow, but now wasn't the time. Right now, it was Lyle's responsibility to teach the dolls as much as they were willing to learn. He picked up the rest of the books scattered on the floor and made his way back to the dolls. The dolls were waiting patiently right where Lyle left them. He sat down with a soft sigh, deciding to keep his encounter with Tilly to himself. Thanks for waiting, guys. I found some good stuff. Lyle planted the stack of books on the floor in front of him, and the 5 dolls shimmied closer with anticipation. Let's see. We've got a book on nature. Could I take a look at that one, Lyle? After you're finished with it, of course. Here, it's yours. Ellery humbly accepted the book and began flipping through its pages. Can they read already? The doll's eyes sparkled with fascination at the detailed photographs inside. He was in awe of the Earth's natural marvels. What else? Lyle continued to rummage through the stack, trying to find a starting book for each doll. I have a book about technology here. Oh, me please. Lyle chuckled as he surrendered the book over to Cavell's grabby hands. Here, Rook, give this one a try. He passed the doll a brightly colored book about food. Rook seemed to be a picky eater. Lyle thought if he could get him interested in different kinds, that maybe he'd be willing to try more. Okay, Lyle. I'll take this one, I guess. Torrin pulled a small astronomy book out of the stack, which left Decipher with a published piece on geography. Boo, this one's boring. Give me that one. Decipher swiped the astronomy book from Torrin's hand with a smirk. That one's mine. Why don't you take this one instead, Decipher? This book is probably the most important one here. It's about your human forms. Decipher tossed the astronomy book in Torrin's direction, trading it for the new book on anatomy, which, according to Lyle, was a much more crucial read. What about that book, Lyle? At the bottom of the stack, wholly forgotten by Lyle, sat the potty training book. Lyle's cheeks flushed in embarrassment. You guys have to read that one on your own, okay? Let's just read these for now. He let out a nervous chuckle. The dolls shrugged and continued flipping through their books. Before Lyle knew it, an hour had passed. He sat with the 5 dolls on the floor, telling them stories and answering their seemingly endless questions as best he could. He thought it was strange how quickly they grasped concepts and absorbed the information he provided, though not half as strange as them being able to speak fluent, developed English right from the start. They were implausible and incredible. Lyle wondered if Tilly would ever believe him. She seemed to be pretty open-minded, unlike Cole. Lyle knew that his brother was far too analytical to accept the dolls. He'd probably try to use science to explain their existence. I mean, why not? In some ways, things are always rooted in science, right? I mean, they have physical bodies, so I don't know. The thought of Cole bringing the dolls to the hospital for medical testing twisted Lyle's stomach in a tight knot. Tests would lead to experiments. Experiments would lead to pain. Exposing the dolls to the scientific world would put them in danger. He would never let it happen. Lyle would keep them a secret from his brother forever. Lyle brushed his hands together as if dusting them off after a hard day's work. There was a mass of books scattered about on the floor. Well, that just about covers it. Wow, we went through a lot. Now what? That depended on the time. Lyle glanced at a nearby wall clock. Well, it's still kind of early. Can we look around on our own for a bit, Lyle? Yeah, Lyle, please. Please. I don't know. Lyle scratched his cheek. Was it safe for the dolls to wander off on their own? He had left them alone before, but always asked them to stay put. After all, he knew that he'd be held responsible for any trouble they caused. I want to learn about the world. To think that if you just keep traveling in the same direction, you'll eventually end up right back where you started. Isn't that amazing? You'd see so many things along the way. Cities, oceans, rainforests. And deserts. And deserts. Which one is it? Alright. It was hard to turn down Cavell's enthusiasm. Yes. But stay on this floor. Lyle called out as Cavell eagerly started off. The doll's head shifted about like a jittery bird's, twisting this way and that as he tried to take in everything at once. That goes for all of you. The remaining dolls nodded. I'm gonna go exploring. Lyle chuckled. Just behave yourself and remember to keep the volume down, okay? Aye, sir. The doll tripped over one of the large floor cushions as he ran off, but managed to steady himself before disappearing around the corner. Lyle slapped a hand to his forehead. Don't worry, Lyle. I'll keep an eye on him. Ellery placed his hands in his pockets and wandered off at a leisurely pace. How? You'll never catch up to him. Oop. Ellery straightened himself after stumbling over the same floor cushion Rook had chipped on just moments before. Someone ought to fix that. See you in a bit. Fix what? You two are just clumsy. Lyle turned to face the remaining two dolls. Huh? Where's Torin? Decipher shrugged. Torin must have already wandered off on his own. He was a little antisocial compared to the others. Lyle had a hard time speaking with him alone. Truthfully, the temperamental doll frightened him a bit. I'll be on my way then. Not so fast. Uh-huh. You'd rather I stay back alone with you, hmm? Decipher slipped an arm across Lyle's shoulders. His hair had a citrusy smell to it, like a clementine. No, you're not wearing a shirt. So? You can't just wander around in public like that. Make sure no one sees you. Fine, fine. Decipher gave Lyle a reassuring pat on the back before disappearing amidst the aisles. I hope they don't get into any trouble. Well, with 5 of them on the loose, chances are kind of low that nothing will happen. Lyle collected the books from the floor with a smile, impressed by how much they'd covered in such a short time. The dolls were all fast learners, and despite a bit of goofing off, had stayed focused and diligent during the lessons. Lyle was proud of them. He brought the books to one of the library's return carts and looked around, wondering what other subjects or genres each doll might be interested in. If their tastes were as unique as their personalities, it might be fun to find out. He decided to go looking for someone. What section of the library should I visit? Okay, we have the visual arts, graphic novels, science fiction, audiobooks, and romance. Oh. Honestly, I don't think I can even assign everyone a topic yet. I'll assume science fiction would be Cavell. Would it though? And stuff like visual art and audiobooks, I have no idea. Graphic novels would maybe be Rook. And romance Decipher? I don't know too much about them as of yet, so tricky. Oh, which one to pick? I think I'm going to go audiobooks just because I don't really know who would be there. Let's see. Oh. Lyle thought he might find a doll near the audiobooks. Being new to the language, it was probably easier for the dolls to listen to a novel rather than read one on their own. Okay. Lyle spotted Torin in the distance and froze. Torin was a bit intimidating, and without the other dolls there to break the tension, Lyle was hesitant to approach. Still, he thought he should try to get to know Torin a little better. Torin was facing away from Lyle, which made this the perfect opportunity to start a conversation, safe from the doll's intense glare. He moved in closer and spoke to Torin's back. Hey Torin. Found anything interesting? Does he have headphones on and doesn't listen to you? Torin? Lyle reached out and tapped the doll's shoulder. Torin spun around with a jolt, startling Lyle as much as he'd apparently startled him. Oh,
it's you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. The audiobook section, huh? Good choice. Lyle shifted nervously. Torrin stared at Lyle blankly before removing one of his earbuds.
Huh?
Oh, you were listening to something this whole time. Lyle rubbed the back of his head sheepishly.
Yeah.
The two looked around awkwardly, unsure of what to say to each other. Torrin broke the silence after a moment.
You wanna listen?
Torrin held out the earbud he had removed just moments before, the other piece still snug in his opposite ear. Lyle blinked in surprise. Torrin was the last doll he would have expected to make such a gesture.
I don't care either way, so if you don't wanna, just say so.
Oh, sure, I'll listen. He swallowed hard as he collected the earpiece. Lyle was forced to move in closer to Torrin as he placed it in his ear. The cord connecting the two didn't stretch very far. Lyle's cheeks flushed, and he glanced up at Torrin, who had a surprisingly similar look on his face. He'd never seen Torrin look so shy before. Maybe the doll wasn't as cold as he seemed. Not cold, just loud. Lyle's stomach twisted in a way he'd never felt before. Butterflies? No way.
Quit staring and listen, dummy.
Torrin's defensive shout made Lyle chuckle. The doll's over-the-top reactions didn't seem to match his standoffish personality. Lyle found it incredibly amusing.
What's so funny?
Nothing. Torrin shot Lyle a suspicious glare. We should find the others, don't you think? They're probably waiting for us. Lyle looked away, desperate to change the subject.
I guess.
Suddenly, Torrin reached his hand out towards Lyle's face. Was Torrin going to touch his cheek? Lyle blushed heavily at the thought, but the doll's hand continued toward the bud in his ear. Torrin removed it along with his own and repackaged the audiobook set they had been listening to. Lyle shook his head. Where'd that thought come from? Why would that even cross his mind?
You coming?
Huh? Lyle spotted the doll down the aisle ahead of him. He'd already started to head back on his own. Yeah, right behind you. Lyle ran after Torrin in search of the others, brushing off his strange thoughts. Sure. It wasn't long before the group was reunited. Much to Lyle's relief, the dolls hadn't caused any real trouble. He felt like he could trust them to be on their own a little more, but Lyle wouldn't give them free rein just yet. There was still so much to teach them. He had barely scratched the surface of social etiquette, and Lyle was pretty sure the dolls weren't aware of the law. The last thing he needed right now was the police showing up at his doorstep. There would be no hiding the dolls from Cole then. As they left the library, Lyle was shocked to see the sun well on its way down. I can't believe it's this late already. Cavell whipped his wrist upward with an exaggerated motion to read his watch. Yes, it's already after 7 o'clock. Cavell beamed, sticking his chest out proudly. He must have just learned about time during their visit to the library. Lyle couldn't tell if Cavell was eager to share his knowledge with the others, or if he was just trying to show off. Torin rolled his eyes, likely assuming the latter.
Yeah, you're smart, we get it.
Rook ran ahead of the group and turned to face them. Where are we going next, Lyle?
Let's see what the nightlife has to offer around here. I think that's enough excitement for one day. We should probably head back.
Ellery placed a reassuring hand on Lyle's shoulder.
He's right, everyone. Cole will be expecting him. Boo, no fun.
Decipher slowed his pace, trying to stretch what little time they had left. Aw, but I want to stay out with everybody.
Quit whining. We'll do something fun this weekend, okay?
They made their way back home. Lyle let the dolls stay in their human forms for a while, enjoying their company and knowing that it was safer to travel as a group anyway. If those bullies from school appeared now, they'd likely keep their distance. Lyle was grateful to think something as simple as walking together could make him feel so much more confident. It was nice not having to worry for a change. Lyle smiled as he watched Rook and Cavell run ahead of the group. They pointed at almost everything and asked countless questions, which he answered kindly. Torin and Decipher bickered along the way, mostly about petty things like which building was taller or whether the sewers below their feet truly led to the center of the earth. Lyle couldn't help but laugh. Ellery was quiet, but Lyle could tell he was enjoying himself. He had a sincere smile on his face and stopped occasionally to feel the bark of a tree or pick up a leaf from the ground to examine it. Some strangers passed along the way, which initially made Lyle nervous, but they didn't seem to mind the dolls. In their eyes, they were human. Their unusual clothing and behavior were simply brushed off as youth culture, which brought Lyle some relief. Maybe the dolls could function in human society after all. It was getting late and most businesses in the area were closing shop, but one store in particular caught Lyle's attention. It was a small toy shop, and outside of it, sweeping the sidewalk, was the old man he and Cole met when they first arrived in town. Right. I was wondering if that really had if there was some reason why they, went ahead and made this like an interaction with someone. Huh. So he's not just an unimportant, seen once and then ignored character. Lyle was surprised to see him again and wondered what the shop was like inside. He considered calling out to the old man, but with the dolls walking ahead and Cole waiting at home, Lyle couldn't afford to get caught up in a conversation. The shop's probably closing soon anyway. I shouldn't impose. Lyle ran ahead to catch up with the dolls, making a mental note to visit the old man's toy shop sometime soon. Well, it's not going to be a coincidence that the person they almost ran into was someone who had a toy shop, eh? So maybe we'll get someone who has a bit more knowledge than us after all. Kind of mentor. So, sometimes it's a bit tough to choose where to stop. But I think I'm going to end this for now. And yeah, do a sneaky save. And see you next time. So we got to know a bit more about the dolls. Didn't make much progress with Tilly there, but I assume she'll come around and eventually become our friend and what's the name? Someone we can confide in. Yep. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I'd appreciate if you could share your thoughts in the comments down below. And until next time, bye bye.